Right, you're only going to do no more than 5 because they take time and we just want to demonstrate to the example that we can do them. Okay? You're only going to whitebox test the ones that have got logic in. So what I don't want you to do is to pick 5 that are identical. So don't like go into your logic code for your title screen and your game container because they're pretty much the same structure. So try and pick 5. If you can't find 5, don't worry, but you need to do 4 or 5. Okay? You're just looking for any that have got logic. So the ones that you've done pseudocode for, really. Okay? And all the whitebox testing is to show where there are decision points in one of your bits of code, in your algorithms. Okay? So I've got, it's not exactly a made up, but this is like some enemy logic sort of structure for a subroutine for that. It's actually taken from my Nibbler game. Okay, so the first point is to label up with letters the main parts of the code. Okay, so we go from the start and I'm going to label that A because that's a decision point. The next, if that's true, we're going to go into this brace and we're going to do these 3 bits of code. But I don't care what the 3 bits of code are. So I'm going to label that block of code. They're just one statement after another. We're not interested in what's going on here, but we're going to label those up as B. So that's those 3 bits. Okay. Then there's another decision point here, the if. So I'm going to label that C. It's very important that I do that. If we say true to this, we're going to do these 3 lines of code. So I'm going to label them all D. Then I've got a decision, a switch. So that's where we look, we say, right, what is that value? And then we put a case for everything that we're looking for. Okay, just like you've done with the collisions and things like that. Yeah? So I've got, for each case, I'm going to make a letter up. So F and G. So that's to cover those 3 bits. Okay, in each one. I've then got this at the end. So if we look at this, after we do the decision in the switch, we've got this bit of code. So I'm going to label that H. And then the final bit, okay, so that's the end of the if. Okay, so I need to find that so you can see that that's the end of the if because it lines up with that one. So I'm going to label that I. Here's the other if, so I need to find out what brace marks up with that, and it's there, so J. So this is quite a complicated one. Okay, and that's the end of the algorithm when I get down to here. Alright, so I'm going to move that line so I can see what I'm doing. So that's the first thing that you do. You could, if you want, if you're completely stuck on this, you can write down for every single line a letter. So you can go A, B, C, D. Alright, so you could just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like that. But you've been making work for yourself. Alright? All we've got to show in the little diagram that I'm now going to draw is where do we go when we make certain decisions. So we start at A, so I'm going to draw a diagram in the space I've got left. Now when you do it nice in Visio, you can put circles or you can do square shapes and whatever shape you want, doesn't matter. I'm just going to leave it as a letter. So I've got here a decision point. So if this is true, okay, I'm going to do all this code. If it isn't true, I'm just going to end. Alright, because that if is round all the code. So it's just going to end. And that goes to J. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw J. There. And I'm going to do an arrow. So at A, I might decide to do none of this code at all. So this is just a bit where we're saying, only make a decision on where we're going if we're near the centre of a tile. There's no point unless we know we can go east, north, south or west. Alright. If we say true to that, we're going to go and move on to point B. So we can say, hey, look. And for any if you've got, you'll only ever have 2 routes. Okay? You only, because it's either true or false. So you either go that way or that way. So we do B, and then we get, from B, we then do C, which is another if. Okay? So we're looking at that if that is true, so you don't need to know what it is, you're just drawing out what the structure of the code is. So if that's true, we're going to go here and do D. So we can say from C, we then do D. We'll then move on and do E, which is a switch. So we look at what pick is, and we've got two choices. Okay, it could be an F, or we could go and execute G, but if it's neither of those, we'll end up at H. Okay, so I'm going to draw H. This diagram's going all over the shop, but I'm going to draw H there, it doesn't matter. So I might end up just going to H. When F and G finish, because they've got that break line, they'll end up at H as well. So we can end up there, and we can end up there. Alright? After H, we just end up at I. And then after I, we go to J. Now, let's go back to D, because there was a decision at D. So if that wasn't true, we end up there at I. And that's your diagram. So you're just showing the routes through the code. This was a complicated one. I picked a complicated one on purpose.
Would it not be C that goes to I?
Good point. Oh yeah, D was the linear bit, wasn't it? Yeah. Well spotted. They look nice if you put some shape around them. But that's what that shows you. That the reason we do this as testing is that you can say, well, hang on a minute, does everything match up? And it's made you check. So you've looked and you've gone, hang on a minute, no, it's C, it goes to I. So you're double checking. Alright, so they're good for that. So that's part 2. And then the only little thing you've got to do at the end is just explain. So once you've done that, you can identify to yourself and you can say, right, my decision points are clear on the diagram. I've got a decision here. I've got a decision here. And I've got a decision here. So I make a little table and I say what decision is made and what route you go. I don't write all this out, but I just summarise what's happening. So at A, I would write the decision, and in the portfolio guide it shows you an example of the table. Okay, and there are samples on the Unit 17 page of the testing. Okay, so you just say at A, if the axis is at centre, we go to B. If not, we go to J. That's it. That's all you're going to say. Then at C, you're going to say if the route is blocked, which is what that is, we go to D and make some decisions. Otherwise, we go to I. You don't say what happens at I. We're not interested in that. And then at E, you just say, right, we look at the direction we've picked. If we pick right, we go to F. If we pick left, we go to G. If we pick neither, we just go to H. And that's it. Alright, and that's the white box testing. So that's what the hardest bit is doing this bit. Because the diagram should just then run from it. Okay? Right, I'll upload that to YouTube. But have a go, and then if you're unsure, then I can check.